every man, woman, and child on just rebuilding for Katrina and Sandy. And what the
Wow.
listener pointed out correctly is that we know these storms will happen again. They will continue to happen. So when we rebuild, it makes a ton of sense to make sure that we do it smart way. We make sure that people don't rebuild in flood zones. And if they are to rebuild in flood zones, we elevate the home. After Sandy, there was some push by the federal government through executive order to make sure that the money for rebuilding homes in Sandy met some minimum criteria when they're in a flood zone. Unfortunately, in about mid-August, that federal order was revoked by executive order by the Trump administration. So all the money that will be funneled through HUD for building these homes will not have to adhere to higher flood standards.
You're kidding me. What was the rationale for that?
Actually, I don't know. I mean, to some degree, it was to stimulate real estate in, I suppose, flood-prone areas. The executive order was simply one line saying the Federal Flood Management System, the FFMRS, is no longer active, and we will not adhere to it anymore. So hopefully Congress will require that all funding for these disasters will have to adhere to some sort of flood standard. I wanted to actually pick up on one other point is that we know that climate change and sea level rise will affect a ton of homes in and across not only Florida, but across the United States. I saw yesterday a report by the turn of the century, more than 900,000 homes in Florida will be submerged underwater, given how we project climate change to be. And this isn't only a problem in Florida and Louisiana. I work a lot on the eastern shore of Maryland, for example, and in Dorchester County. By the turn of the century, more than 60% of its land mass will be submerged underwater.
How does I want to look at the insurance program, flooding insurance, but Julia, what about private insurers here and their exposure to these areas? Do they just stay in there and raise premiums? Do they raise premiums on everyone across the country when you get the coast or particular areas in deeper trouble, Julia?
That's a great question. It's one that private insurers are absolutely going to have to grapple with in the coming weeks and months. After Hurricane Matthew in Hurricane Andrew in 1992, a lot of private insurers did end up leaving the state of Florida. And we know after Hurricane Katrina, a number of insurers pulled out as well. So it would not be unprecedented if we saw private insurance coverage diminish if they think storms will continue to batter a certain region.
I mean, if they stay in, do they? Our caller in Pennsylvania was saying, well, hey, they're getting high premiums to pay for what happens on the coast. Is that true?
We're going to have to wait and see. It certainly fits in with the business model right now.
Yeah, I want to look more at the government flooding program as well, but call here from Tallahassee, Florida. Bob, on Interstate 10, headed for Tallahassee anyway. Bob, thank you for calling. What do you see there?
Tom, thank you. What's interesting, there is an enormous backup on I-10 all the way to Jacksonville. In fact, parts of I-10 are actually flooded in the Jacksonville area. What is interesting to me, though, is I live in Naples, Florida.
Yeah.
I evacuated 3 days ago, and I drove overnight to go to my brother's home up in Pensacola for obviously safekeeping with my mom and dad.
Yes.
My wife and went the day before. What was interesting, though, and I wanted to present this to your panel, Governor Scott came on to certainly accentuate all of these and what they're doing. I think one of the things that was missed, and maybe by the higher authority, was fuel. I saw hundreds of cars stranded on the side of the road as I drove overnight for 11 hours up Route 98 because I-75 was a total parking lot overnight for the evacuation, and so was I-95. But I think one of the things that the FEMA folks and others would probably need to address to the state of Florida, certainly to other states, is the lack of fuel that was in there are 280,000 gas stations in the state of Florida, and as I speak to you now through Gas Buddy, there's 1,000 gas stations that have fuel right now, and everybody's heading back, and it was worse coming up. I think the point here, though, to your panel, and I'll stop here, was that needs to be addressed about fuel for the evacuations, which were perfect. They were really well done. Many people got out, but there was no fuel.
Hey, Bob, let me just confirm. Did you say you saw hundreds of cars along the highway out of gas?
Yes, I was on Route 98 and Route 19 on the coastal road because I-75 was a parking lot. And so many people were stranded. In fact, for 1 hour, my mom and dad and I at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And there was one gas station that had fuel, and the line to get there, because so many people were out of gas, the Walmarts were full of parking lots with people with no fuel. As I drive on I-10, I'm at mile marker 96. As I drive, there are maybe a dozen cars that have 5-gallon jerry cans strapped to their roof. Yeah. And quite honestly, I have 5 jerry cans in the back of my little Hyundai as I speak, just to be safe. But I think that's a very interesting point for your panel.
Definitely.
How do we get fuel? How do we get the appropriate planning and protocol in place for fuel stations in an evacuation as this, and we'll let them talk to that.
Bob, I appreciate your call off I-10. Thank you very much, and drive safely there. Allison, I guess this comes into resilience territory. If we're in a period where people are going to be evacuating in great numbers, but we saw the problem, how do you get around it? It's just a logistical problem. They've been scrambling every which way with tankers and trucks and military escort, and still.
Yeah, it is a logistical nightmare, to be quite frank. Unfortunately, gas is highly hazardous, and we can't just have extra stored in adjacent to gas stations. So many of them were filled beforehand, except there was extreme demand, and it just could not keep up with the demand. So ports will reopen today, is what I've been reading. So hopefully they'll get fuel back, but it just is it's just a nightmare. And always after these type of disasters, I just want to point out that we do, FEMA absolutely has a lesson to figure out how to make this process faster. Part of the reason why stations still some have reopened isn't power for pumping. You might have some gasoline. There isn't electricity yet in order to power those pumps. So part of the problem is a lot of these systems are so interconnected that without power, it's actually hard to get fuel to these gas stations.
Or electric cars, you get the grid down for millions.
And recognizing that they have property in flood zones. But
those premiums are subsidized by taxpayers in themselves, right, with the National Flood Insurance Program?
Some are certainly subsidized.
They don't really cover the cost of this rebuilding. That's why they're running a deficit.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. It's a pickle. Stacey, do you have any misgivings, Stacey, about saying to people, chip in here because it's needed?
I think one of the things to focus on is that what charities are doing is really trying to help the most vulnerable. And so they're focused on those kinds of needs. So your dollar is going to people who can't help themselves. And those are the kinds of questions you should ask before you give, to make sure that that's where the money is going, not to help those who are most affluent. But we need to remember in disasters that those who are disproportionately affected are already in trouble. They already might not have jobs. They might have addiction problems. They might have mental health problems. They might be old. They might be disabled. That's where your charitable money can go and can make a tremendous difference. And we should all be compassionate toward those people who, really didn't have any other place to go and are now in a pretty bad predicament.
Well, these are weather events with climate change swirling around and them. They're economic events as well, and extremely costly, adding up between these two to maybe the same scale as Hurricane Katrina, by some accounts, maybe even more. That money streaming in from lots of angles as people dry out and look forward in both around Houston, the Texas coast, and now in Florida. I want to thank you for being with us today. State Park, the Chronic Philanthropy. Thank you very much for joining us, Stacey.
Great to be with you.
Horowitz at Send Money, coming to us from Breaking News in New York. Thank you very much, Julia.
Thanks, Tom.
And Allison Riley, Professor of Civil Environmental University of Maryland College Park. Thank you for your time today, Allison.
Thank you, Tom.
Good luck, Florida. I'm Tom Ashbrook. This is On Point.
On Point of WUR Boston and NPR.
By listeners and by Vertex, discovering new medicines to improve the lives of serious diseases for people behind their signs on VXM. Gregory Oriental Clean Hand Washing or Pure Pick up and delivery repair and restoration services. GreenRugs.com and Sun Solar, a Sun dealer providing rooftop, parking canopy, and solar systems for businesses. Find out what the Sun can do for your company at sunplugsolar.com.
This is 9.9 WBUR and WBUR.com, the TEDio Hour. The time is 8:58.
WBURs include Leslie University, where it empowers teachers to inspire future generations. Explore undergraduate education at the BU and Boston Children's Museum. Boston's second maker, September 17th. And on childrenmuseum.org.
Hurricane Irma left millions of electricity and storm flood across the.
There's a few house damage there. Saw sports rails that were heavily damaged and other roads that were at its about. Some still in the water and some on.
Now some residents are returning home, but assessing the path of Irma and will take a rebuild tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning at 90.9 WUR. Boston University, you're listening to 9 WRM Boston, home of the largest radio newsroom. 92.7 WBA Tisbury, 89.1 WBA and streaming at WUR.org. To Boston's NPR news station.
This is the hour. Each week, groundbreaking TED Talks.
Entertainment design.
Is that right? I've never a TED conference.
We believe in impossible things.
The talks, the ideas, and radio. From NPR. I'm Guy Raz. Picking up.
Each thing that touches some end. Anything else that touches present life, you don't know. You're able to contrast and find
Noticing what works.
And find you think you have talent.
This is the power of design. First.
Live from NBC in Washington, I'm Jack Spear. Residents in the Keys were able to return their homes today for the first time since Hurricane Irma struck Sunday. And because nearly all found flood damage, some found total.
The only road connecting to the island, the only Colorado, was a community on the point, including Marathon and Big Pine. So worse. In Island, about half of the wind scalers and debris appeared to be hours of furniture and birdos was roofed. The storms are the whole community and come back.
Now we're a community and we love each other. That's what's important. So, doing us, everybody's together, we'll stick it out and we'll put condos.
About much of the Keys, there's water or phone service. Greg Allen, PR News, Miami.
As Florida works to recover damage by a house, President Trump will state later this week. Secretary Sarah Hunters on Florida on Thursday. They have any further details about 5 million homes businesses still without power. If makes 25% home in the Keys were strict. At least 37. Jury selection is underway in the case of a 2000 attacks on a diplomatic compound in Gun. Mary Johnson explained 4 Americans were killed in glitter creeps.
More than 100 suspects filed in court in D.C. to answer questions about their familiarity with the case. Defendant Abdul is accused of in the deadly act a few years ago. He's Judge Chris Birchall told juror the trial costs 5 or 6 weeks. The judge is looking to open mind. This is not a run-of-the-mill trial, the judge said. The justice did not seek the death penalty, but is many decades in prison if he convicted. Mary Johnson and
the British government is not a blow to Rupert saying referring to the satellite broadcaster side, the country's main competition regulator. For 21st Century Fox Group and 60 cents video. Culture Secretary said she regularly scrutinized the increased influence by fully owned side. Let's continue the upward momentum today with the Nasdaq and the S&P all close record. Dow was 22,118. The Nasdaq 20 points today. This is NPR.
This is 9.9 WBUR. I'm Tank Leslie Boston. Boston police say Boston is on life-threatening injuries and 3 others are in custody following shooting. Police together near 139 Trammell Street during one who witnessed the shooting told their line. Emerson alerted to the incident to lock doors at shelter-in-place or 11th. Meanwhile, the Attorney General was shooting today Dartmouth Hawk Medical Center. A fifth woman's Clancy unit on 401 bills. Attorney Gordon McDonald updated public earlier.
So we have the hospital, and I can confirm there are no additional victories resulting from this.
Rhode Island police spoke. The suspect is a Rhode Island suspect finger of the victim. Former Unition's National Security Advisor is heading to Harvard. Russell Senior Fellow and says she's honored to join the Center for Science and Technology. What says is critical for American leaders served as National Security Advisor from 2013 to 2019. And Massachusetts Senator Warren's legislation aimed at preventing the development of new Indian-range missile carrying a warhead. Warren says any research the weapon should be held in the department and if actually needed. Warren is introduced by the Republican McLee. In forecast tonight, temperatures in the Red Sox rally on the 5th.
By listeners and by PBD Museum, now, or your passion can become your work with the psychology. Open house williamnames.eu/open and Heather Haga, African Wildlife Fund, working with your wife and lands. Learn more at aw.org.
I'm Raz. Tony, can I say something to Johnny Craig? Did you conference call from your phone?
Oh.
You got a number on your phone.
Welcome
to that's the conference code. And you use all codes.
You have invalid me credentials. Goodbye.
It drives me crazy.
Oh, I do that every day. Why does it have to be so hard?
Please figure out how to make that easier.
You hit a really problem.
This is Tony. What he's probably best known for a somewhat revolutionary device known as the
Big Henry Days of that pub.
You say Tony design. It means that he spots design around the time.
Being around is not so good because I'm like, who's on this? I'm like, I'm driven nuts by this. I'm never really inspired by so many things in the world. And create. Oh my God, this is brilliant. So the design in the world is very rare. Versus all me I deal with.
The solution, he says, isn't to just deal with it, actually do something to fix it. Tony says potential to improve through design.
Everything else be transformed even better than today.
So, the power of design, things we inhabit, and objects we use, to the patterns in nature, even the ways we interact with people. Design is around us all the time.
Each thing that we touch is natural from the natural world. Someone had a hand in.
And for Tony Fadell, design begins by noticing those tiny little problems that most of us usually ignore. Those sticks on fruit. Here's Tony Fadell on the head.
But sometimes you ask, something about that stick of fruit. Why could be a powder? We get out quickly, but now new problem. We're home and we just right juicy piece of fruit on counter. We just pick it up. Except now we have to this little sticker and dig at it with nails, damaging the flesh. That sticker and train it off fingers. It's fun. But something interesting happened. The first time I felt those feelings, I wanted to eat fruit, but it was you upset. Just dive in. By the time I started less upset. I started to do the peeling the label off. By the 100th time, I simply picked up the piece of fruit, dug at it with my nail, flick it off, and then wonder, was there another stick?
Okay, totally ruined fruit for me. I do this every time.
No, but once you focus your attention on it, you will never, because it's going to be annoying.
The fact that we think that we're just sheep. We just go through our lives in the world accepting so many of these design flaws that actually don't improve our lives.
I agree with you. And that's because I think we have a demanding day every day with family, with work, all these things, that we're just so inundated with all these different things that we go life through the motions. And we lose control of things that thrust upon as opposed to wrenching control back. I'm not going to do that anymore. We need to get this fixed.
So back in 2001, Tony's part team working to fix just the conditions that the rest of us didn't know we had. Specifically, the way we used to listen to music.
But they only fit so many songs. There's these other things called MP3 players out there. But at the day, you want to put 1,000 songs on them, but they were too slow. How could we innovate? And so we're trying to make the existing technology, but make it so you could have 1,000 songs in your pocket. You could put 1,000 onto it very quickly. You could quick between tracks. You could track you on it. Right? All these things were parameters that we designed to make sure we could experience, and that's where that we put each of those details.
Every single detail. And Steve Jobs, sure of that.
Steve Jobs see our products through the eyes of the customer, the new customer. One has here possible frustrations and hopeful exhilaration that their new technology could work straight away for them. He called it staying beginner and wanted to make sure that we focus on the tiny detail and seamless for the new customers. See, back in 90s, gadget freak, I would rush out to store the latest gadget. I'd all the time to get to the store, I'd try to home, box it, and then there was another little sticker on that charge before use. What? I can't believe it. I just spent all the time buying this, and now I have to wait for an attorney to use the new toy. It was cool. But you know what? Almost every product back then did that. The batteries in the charge before you used it. Steve noticed that, and he said, we're not going to let that happen. So typically, a product that has a hard drive, you run it about 30 years in the factory to make the hard drive be working years later for the customer to pull out a box. What did we do? We ran it for over 2 hours. Why? Be easy to test and make it great for the customer. But mostly, the battery came fully charged right out of the box, ready. The customer just was good and worked. We take almost everybody that battery powered comes out of the box, but then we notice that we waste it. No one else does that. No more charge before use.
These are those little details that are so important. Momentum. From the time you learn about a product, you engage with that. And then you learn more and more intriguing to you. And you hope that there's this positive momentum that builds on it each step of the process. The experience you are designing for people.
What explains why some products really take off? Like the iPod, obviously hugely popular. The Microsoft Zoom, perfectly well-designed product, and yet
so say that I'm playing with my 25-30-year career, and I think I figured it out. And what you all have to look at is when you design something. There are two halves to design, just like there are two halves to your brain: the emotional part and the rational. You need to truly adopt a product or what have you. It has to have an emotion. Something that you go, oh, I want to learn more. It's cooler. It also needs to rationally, got to be a good reason. Is it for safety? Is it time going to be for me? You need your features. Rational feature cause people to buy it. Emotional features that get off to actually buy it. So you have plenty of able to get people.
The Caribbean